Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple is probably the biggest tonal whiplash in his career up to this point, because previously he gave us movies like Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., movies that had the sense of adventure, wonder, thrills, a bit of humor, were just all around crowd-pleasing entertainment. And then he makes this movie, and it feels like Spielberg intentionally stripped away almost all the escapism. This movie is heavy from beginning to end. It is emotionally exhausting in a way that I honestly was not prepared for. The movie deals with themes of abuse, racism, sexism, trauma, and emotional cruelty in a very direct way. And what surprised me is that the film does not shy away from those themes, but also doesn't do it in a way that feels exploitative. A lot of movies with dark subject matter either sanitize everything so it loses impact, or they push the darkness so hard that it starts to feel like the filmmakers are just trying to shock the audience. This movie manages to walk a careful line between those extremes. The suffering is not sugar-coated, but Spielberg also handles it with restraint and dignity. There are scenes that are genuinely difficult to sit through because of how cruel people can be, but the movie never feels like it's trying to gross you out or manipulate you with just misery for the sake of misery. The villain in the movie is honestly one of the most infuriating characters I've seen in a Spielberg film, not because he's over the top or theatrical, but because he is the worst kind of evil. Cruelty that becomes normal inside a home. He's abusive, controlling, degrading, and emotionally destructive. Some movie villains are entertaining to watch because there's a larger than life quality to them, and this character is not entertaining at all. He feels disturbingly real, and that's what makes him so hard to watch. The movie understands that sometimes the most horrifying people are not monsters or criminals in the traditional movie sense. Sometimes they're just deeply selfish people who destroy everyone around them. The performances are really what carry the film. Whoopi Goldberg is incredible here, especially considering that this was her film debut. Her performance is quiet for much of the movie, but that silence says so much. You can see the pain, fear, and hopelessness in her expressions even when she barely speaks. Then as the film progresses, you slowly watch her rediscover her sense of worth and identity. It's not a flashy transformation, it feels gradual and human. Oprah Winfrey is also fantastic. Her performance is a lot more fire and energy, and she gives the movie some emotional intensity whenever she's on screen. The cast in general just feels very authentic. Nobody feels like they're performing or trying to win Oscars. The emotions feel raw and believable. That said, one issue I had with the movie is I think it needed more historical context, because the film clearly takes place during an important and painful period in American history, but if you don't already know much about that era, the movie doesn't always ground you in the larger social situation. I found myself wanting more understanding of what was happening in America outside these characters' lives. What were the racial tensions at the time specifically? What economic conditions were these families living under? What was changing socially during this period? The movie focuses so tightly on the personal story that sometimes the broader historical picture feels underexplored. Now, maybe that was intentional. Maybe Spielberg wanted the story to feel personal rather than historical, but for me, I think a little more context would have helped strengthen the emotional impact even more, because it would connect these characters to this larger reality of the world around them. Visually, the movie is still unmistakably Spielberg in some ways. Even though this is a much more grounded drama, you can still see his eye for composition and emotional storytelling. There are shots in the movie that are beautiful despite the darkness of the material. He knows how to use lighting, framing, and music to emphasize emotion without overdoing it. The emotional scenes are powerful because Spielberg trusts the audience enough to sit in uncomfortable moments instead of rushing through them. But this is absolutely not a fun movie. I think that's important to say clearly, because some people go into Spielberg movies expecting entertainment in the traditional sense. This is not the kind of film you throw on for a relaxing movie night. There's almost no sense of adventure or excitement here. Even the hopeful moments are surrounded by so much pain that the movie can feel emotionally draining. I respect it more than I enjoy it. And honestly, that's probably why I won't rewatch it. This is one of those films where I can absolutely recognize the craftsmanship, the acting, the importance of the story, and the emotional honesty, but I have no desire to watch it again. Some movies are enjoyable rewatches even when they're emotional. This one just feels like an experience you endure rather than enjoy. Then I mean that in a positive way rather than in a negative way. Still, I do think the movie deserves credit for taking such a massive creative risk. Spielberg could have easily stayed in the blockbuster lane forever after the success of his earlier films, but instead he chose to make something deeply serious and uncomfortable. Whether or not it fully works for everyone, I respect the ambition a lot. Overall, it is a well-made and powerful acted drama that tackles extremely difficult themes with maturity and restraint. It's Spielberg's most serious film up to this point by a mile, and while I personally think it could have used more historical context and is not something I'll ever rewatch, I still respect the craftsmanship behind it. It's not a movie that I liked in the traditional sense, but I can definitely appreciate why it resonates so deeply with people. So for me, it gets a C, a 7 out of 10, and a 3 out of 5 stars.